Year and welcome to Galactic Goonies. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us on the Resistance broadcast. It is Galactic Goonies. It is 2025, and we're here to talk about Skeleton Crew Episode 6, Zero Friends Again, written by Myung-Jo Wessner, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. Bryce Dallas Howard, once again, very popular online with Star Wars fans. We'll get into that in a little bit. With me, as always, Lacey. Lacey, how we doing? Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year. How's it going?
It's going.
It is going. Back to work tomorrow, huh?
Back to work tomorrow. So I'm fighting the ultimate scaries when you're off for, it's like Sunday scaries times 5 billion, pretty much. But hopefully this talking Star Wars puts me in a good mood to head into that. But with us is the host of a wonderful show that we've been lucky enough to guest on a few times, from Star Wars Music Minute. Follow it, subscribe to it. Welcome to the show, Xanthi. How are you?
Hello, thank you.
Yay.
Thanks for inviting me.
So good to have you, and thank you for taking the time. I know the holidays are crazy and all that, but we've been on your show a few times now, and we were like, we got to reach out to Xanthi and have her come on. And here you are. Now, we're not just going to talk music, of course. You're allowed to talk about other things besides music and Star Wars on our show. So
I am excited for your music perspective, though.
Yes.
I told John that.
Yeah, how much have you talked about music so far in the show?
That we like it.
No, we have. We have.
Okay.
I'm not very musical savvy, so I'll be honest. Like, I was like, I just really like this. So
yeah, like we definitely talked about the floating key theme into the Force theme, and any things that stand out from what Mick Giacchino's doing, we touch on. We don't dedicate full episodes to it, of course, the way you do, but we do touch on it. So for anything, of course, that came to your mind on this episode, let it fly. Because if our audience doesn't know, you have not only an extensive background in music, you also perform music, play music, and you podcast about music and Star Wars. So there we go.
It's true.
Now, on that note, why don't you let our audience know where they can find you, the podcast, and everything you have going on?
Well, thank you. You can find my podcast, Star Wars Music Minute, on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. And then on the various social media platforms, that will be at Star Wars Music Minute or Star Wars Museman. And my name is Chrysanthi Tan. So you'll be able to find me there as well. And I also have like music that I've released, and I'm a composer, violinist. So yeah, there are lots of music related things.
And if you guest on Xanthi's show, you'll play live little bits of
I have my violin and piano here with me today.
Yeah.
One of the craziest moments when I was on the show with you, Xanthi, was when you brought out I was like, oh, you're playing. We're like doing this. We're doing this.
Pretty cool.
It's happening.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank anyone who's joining us live. If you're in the chat, I see we have a couple of super chats already in. We'll get to in a minute, so thank you for those. Happy New Year to everybody. We hope you enjoyed this episode, because we're going to talk all about it in just a few minutes here. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're watching live, or if you're listening on your favorite podcast app. Please be sure to follow and all that good stuff. And patrons, you know where to go. Patreon.com/TRB podcast for all of our exclusive additional content, our Discord server, all the good stuff. And we have new stuff planned for 2025. But Lacey, why don't we get to those super chats first, and then we'll get into rating the episode, our favorite moments, the giveaway, and dive in.
Yeah, let's do some super chats first. So we have David Ford, of course. What up, man? Happy New Year. He said, Bryce Dallas Howard really nailed it. The emotional connection with the fans was in full effect. 8.5 all day long.
All right. Thank
Love
you, David.
that.
Appreciate it.
And then we have the other David, Pro-B1 Kenobi. What up, man? Happy New Year. He said, I guess, because we're pirates. Happy New Year, you scurvy dogs. Hoist the colors. I said, hey, it's more like
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it, buddy. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. All right. Let's kick things off by rating the episode. We do it on the NEEL scale because we all love NEEL. So more NEEL is always a good thing for us. So we each rated the episode from 0 to 10. Halves also count. We'll put our scores together and see what we averaged out episode 6 of Skeleton Crew, and then we'll check in with what the TRB community rated it and get to some of your comments. So
Mhm.
I'll kick things off this week. I gave this episode a 7.5 on the NEEL scale. Short episode, and that's okay. But I am a character-driven fan first, and this certainly gave me what I needed out of KB, who I felt was lagging a little behind with character development. And now we see for good reason. A lot of the dots have been now connected with what's going on with her, and I really love the moments between her and Wim. And also, I gotta keep saying it week after week, even though he wasn't in a ton of this episode, Jude Law crushed it again. So overall, a good episode. I think it's perfectly setting up a dual finale. So not my favorite episode, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really solid episode to push us forward. So 7.5 for me. Xanthi, you're up next. What did you give episode 6 on the NEEL scale?
I give it 7 on the NEEL scale, which is a very solid score, I think. And I think it had perhaps one of the most touching moments from the whole series. So I think it had overall it was a 7, but like also with a very special mention for a lot of the KB stuff.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, and 7 is a good score. I feel like Skeleton Crew's been getting good scores all around. So now, Lacey, round us out. What did you give episode 6?
Not to be lame, but I agree with everything Xanthi just said, and I also gave it a 7. I thought that it was short. I thought it was solid, but short. It was beautifully shot. The volume was used in such a way that only seemingly Bryce Dallas Howard knows. She gets the volume better than anybody else, it feels like. And I wish it was longer. I wish this was part of the previous episode, or like, I don't know. The pacing is a little, but the moment between KB and Wim made the whole episode for me. So that's why I gave it a 7.
All right. So for us, that gives us a 7.2. There we are. A bunch of Neils there. And then we check in with our TRB community, who were a little more friendly with this episode. They checked in with an 8.2, so a full point above ours. I think that might be the biggest gap that we've had with them.
Yeah.
Usually where we are, they're right around there. But good scores, though. 7.2 is good in my opinion. 8.2 is very good. And Skeleton Crew so far, I think, universally for the most part, seems to be enjoyed by most fans. Now we have to get to a couple of comments here out of the Resistance base. We have Des Smith, who said, 9 Neils from me. Amazing character moments. I especially love the KB and Wim scene. Onyx Cinder is the Russian doll of ships. Nice. I like that analogy. Joey chimes in here. He says, ahoy there, mateys. I be giving this episode 8.5 Neils out of 10. This was a great episode that was quick but jam-packed. I loved the character moments, and there was still great action throughout. I can't wait until next week, but until then, me hearties, may the force be with ye. I. Well done. I love it. I love what everybody's got going on here. All right, now we're gonna get into the treasure hunt. So I got to do my version of a pirate. So each week, we've been giving a new trivia question in our season-long giveaway contest called the Galactic Goonies Treasure Hunt. The grand prize is a Lego Star Wars Skeleton Crew, the Onyx Cinder spaceship, in its original look.
Right. Pre-multi.
Also some TRB merch for Galactic Goonies and more. So it's pretty simple. Every week I'm asking you a trivia question. Make sure you keep track of the answers each week. And on the final episode of Galactic Goonies on January 15th, I'll reveal what to do with those answers and how to submit for a shot to win the Galactic Goonies treasure. And do us all a favor. Ye be warned. Don't share your answers with any other pirate, or they'll snipe you at the first chance they get. So in other words, don't put the answers in the chat.
I love that you're going harder with this every week. Like, it's like those videos that they're like, first week of watching the Kardashians, second week of watching it's like third week of watching Skeleton Crew.
That's true.
They can't see you doing that. Okay, go ahead.
All right. The fifth question is, When people call him Baby Yoda, you can correct them by saying his name is actually what? Do, 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 do. All right, so that's the question for this week. Record your answers, save it, and bring all your answers with you, including next week's, to the finale on January 15th. And we'll see who is the best pirate out of all of you. But that's it. Good luck to everybody. And onward we go. And let's talk about this episode. We like to kick things off by talking about our favorite moments or a shot, maybe a line of dialogue, something that stood out to us as our favorite part of the episode. Short episode, but plenty of options to choose from, I think. Xanthi, our guest of honor, did you have a favorite moment, scene, shot, line, piece of music out of this episode?
Oh God. Well, okay. I'm gonna set the music aside for a moment, but I think it was my favorite part of the show, the show and this episode, I think, was Wim and KB's heart to heart / fix me scene. It was just so beautiful.
It really was. And I don't know what it was about the horizon. It has nothing to do with them, but it reminded me a little of Cassian and Jin on the beach. Like,
Oh yeah. Totally.
Yeah, just that just like the two of them and nothing else exists. Certainly a great moment. I'm sure we'll expand upon it because I feel like this was a short episode with just a few big chunks that to really focus on. So that's a great pick. Lacey, I want to go to you. Did you have a particular favorite moment from this one?
It's the same sequence. It was beautifully shot. Framing was intimate and wonderful. And specifically, everyone's going to laugh at me per usual. But the push-in shot on Wim at the end, where he has the realization that being a Jedi isn't pulling out the lightsaber and fighting the bad guy, but doing what's best to help other people, was just such a wonderful kind of reinvigorating his belief and hope, which was nice to see because I think he got kind of beat up morally in the last episode. Like he was feeling really down. So KB really helped him kind of find his Jedi way again of, hey, it's not pulling out the lightsaber necessarily. It's doing what's right and helping others is being a Jedi.
Yeah.
And something transforms in the main kids theme there. So we'll talk about that.
Oh, great. Perfect.
All right.
Love it.
Great picks. That's certainly up there for me. I'm going to go with a different spot. But I'm going to say Jod's appeal, his extra time speech as the plasma was filling the minute glass, I guess. I don't know what it was, but that was cool. It was really cool. Specifically just sort of how good of a storyteller Jod is, which proves how good of a liar he also is. He's captivating. He captured that entire audience, that entire room of people who were pretty much okay with the verdict that he's about to die. And he convinces them once again to just take that temptation and maybe go with him. And he's bought himself a few minutes. Now, the cherry on the sundae for this moment for me is there was one moment that I don't know why, but it made me laugh out loud. And it's when he first starts talking and he's like, I'm hungry and blah, blah, blah. And you just hear a random pirate in the back go, what's he on about?
Yeah. They're all yelling back. They're like, whatever, kill him already.
They're like, yeah, haven't you killed him yet? I'm just starting to laugh because it reminded me of like Statler and Waldorf in the Muppets or something, just in the background, like, what is he yelling about over there? So the show is just so great. And I've been tending to gravitate towards the funnier stuff, but Jude Law is absolutely crushing it for me. So that's my favorite moment. But where do we want to dive in now? Xanthi, you alluded to a shift in the kids' theme. So Lacey, I don't know about you, but I think that's a good kickoff point, maybe.
Yeah, let's start there. The only other thing I was going to say really quickly is that we joked about it last year. Oh my God. It was last year, technically. Last week, I was reading a comment that said Happy New Year. Last week, which we said that, Jod is Han Soloing harder than Han Solo. It's like Han Solo and Jack Sparrow had a baby, and that's Jod. And he's just doing it very well. But yeah, no, let's get right into the KB moment because that is just the highlight of the episode, I think.
Yeah. So first, just to make sure we're on like even ground, we all can agree that this is the main kids theme. It's the thing that sounds. That thing. Could you hear that?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay,
we heard
great.
it.
Okay, cool. So just a little quick summation of the kids theme is it sounds very hopeful, and it shares in common a sort of chord progression or collection of pitches that is called Lydian. It's the Lydian mode, and it shares it with like Yoda's theme and Rose's theme and young Anakin's theme. So same chord
Mhm.
progression. So um, it is part of, it's like in a long lineage of hopeful sounding, childlike, wondrous sounding kids themes in Star Wars and in honestly lots of other media, Jurassic Park, lots of other things.
Mhm.
So we have that just right off the bat. In this episode, we started hearing this new ending to the theme that I thought was really interesting, and I'm pretty sure the first moment we hear it is after is in that scene after Wim helps KB with her medical emergency, and she awakens, and so it's like this. So
Mhm.
the whole I have a transcription of it for anyone in the chat that that can read music. Um, yeah, the part that is like that I've circled or boxed in green. That's the new part. Um, and it wasn't a mistake because then I think I heard it like 2 or 3 more other times. But it's like it's as if that scene kicked off something in the character progression of not only KB but Wim and Fern.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I don't know
I
what to make of it because until we hear it more because it's easy to kind of speculate a little bit too much, but I thought it was really poignant.
it almost has like it's marching towards triumph in a way whenever I see notes go up that way.
Yeah.
So like cuz we're clearly seeing the kids not only and just in my opinion developing individually and growing individually and finding out who they are individually, but they're becoming a unit without realizing it. And I think this episode was smart to separate Jod from them completely for an episode. Now granted they pair off, but they end up together. And even so much so that I'm sitting here watching this thing, and yeah, I know there's the obvious like Pixar reminder with the giant crab and Moana and all that, but or Walt Disney Studios. But when they were getting crushed up by that machine, I was thinking of Toy Story 3, like the
Oh,
end of Toy
Toy
Story
Story.
3,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like how they're all there together, but they're all doing a different job on the ship. Like KB's working with the power, Neil's steering, Fern has the boosters, and Wim's back on the gun. It's like they became a unit without realizing it because they all are pulling in the same direction for each other. So I maybe that's what Mick's going for there, Xanthi. I'm not sure, but it's clear this episode, sort of like 2 episodes ago, was helping build up the relationships between the characters. Because ultimately, for me, at the end of the show, if those don't exist, you could write the greatest plot in the history of television or movies, but if you're not buying into these kids loving each other, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point.
That's great. That's a good point, John. That moment between KB and Wim really hit me. I think because um there's something to be said about these characters that they always seem so cool. Like all these Star Wars characters that we love are always just so cool. They're so on it. They know what they're doing. They make tough choices. They do what's right. That's why we connect with them, love them, idolize them, so to speak. And I felt that this moment with KB, who I'll admit wasn't my favorite character going into this story, has really kind of risen in the ranks because I connected so much with her in this episode of I have to follow along, otherwise I'll be alone again. I won't have any friends, or just feeling like you're the outsider. And I've been there so many times in my life that I just like really connected with her, just that fear of being alone. And it reminds me a lot of Star Wars, of especially these kids with the scene between Jod and Wim where he's like kind of like, I'm alone, I need my parents, that kind of thing. But in other Star Wars stories where the characters are kind of afraid of being alone and not being able to handle things on their own, like Rey, and it's kind of that also acknowledgement of it's okay to be alone, and you're not ever alone. Like someone's always going to be there for you. And I liked that moment between her and Wim, because Wim was like, it was such a throwaway for him, but he was like, whatever, you could just be friends with me and Neil, who cares, like whatever. And
Oh,
she
such a
didn't
sweet
even
moment.
yeah, he didn't even think anything of it, and she was just like, oh my gosh, this person that doesn't even know me is willing to step forward for me. I did notice the comment of, she said after her accident, so I can't help but be wonder, like, what does that mean? What is her accident? What happened? But yeah, the moment where she kind of restarts and she's just like, wow, you didn't even realize you just saved my life, but you did, and thanks, Jedi, type thing, was just so wonderful. And like you guys are saying, it just shows that these kids are growing through this journey, through this adventure. And this comes right after them realizing the X-Wings aren't going to come save the day. No adults are going to come save the day. Jod left them. They're on their own. And I think that plays into that moment that you were just saying, Jod, oh my God, John.
All right.
I mean, you could be Jod if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it plays into the moment at the end where they're all playing their parts because they realize, like, we have to do this. Let's all step up. And they all kind of put their stubbornness aside, which we see for the past few episodes. Like, there are a lot of moments where they are like, I want to drive. No, I want to drive. No, I want to shoot the gun. No, I do. So it was fun to see. And the shedding of the ship was really cool too, because it was like basically a brand new ship. I was like, oh, okay.
Lacey, I don't do this often, but we have to get a comment on screen right now. There we go.
Oh, right. Terry says John Jude Law, who could tell the difference. Oh, geez. Guys, I'm going to hear about this for the next few weeks.
My eyebrows okay? Thanks, Terry. All right. I tried to take it off. There we go.
I took it off for you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, it's so cool what's going on with these kids, and how it's not only them being able to work together as a team, but it's happening, like I said, like without them realizing it. And they don't need SM33. They don't need Jod and his nonsense. I mean, ultimately, I do think there is a reunion, and I think Jod will come around still in the end. I don't think he's going full heel. I mean, he might. I don't know.
I think he's in survival mode that we've seen before with characters like Han Solo that are just going to say whatever they need to say to get through.
Yeah, because he's still being funny post that big heel turn at the end where he grabbed the lightsaber. Like in this one, he pops up with all these chains looking like Mr. T, and he's like, oh, it's yeah. He's still goofy. So I still feel like he's gonna come around. Xanthi, where are you at with Jod? Like, first of all, are you a Jude Law fan? And what do you think of his character? And do you have any thoughts on what his path is?
I'm not a fan of Jude Law, but I'm not a fan of Jude Law. I'm neutral on him. But I really like him in this show. I think he's great with the kids.
Yeah.
And very funny.
He is.
And he got to sing.
He did.
That's true. Yeah. Did you try to create music behind the words yet by any chance?
I have transcribed that moment, but I do want to follow. Can I follow up on what Lacey was saying?
Oh,
yes,
yeah?
please do.
The KB thing. I think I think this episode of TV is really unique, not just for Star Wars, but for honestly just TV shows, because usually when things like disability or illness are touched upon or handled in shows, especially in a kids show, it's not as subtle as it was here. It's usually like a very broad, like we have to just accept different people and everyone work together and whatever. This was
Yeah.
a really smart presentation of a very common thing that disabled people face, and that happens when you have really good friends that don't necessarily quite understand what your disability means for you, especially if they knew you maybe before an accident and then after an accident.
Yeah.
Um, with that small line that Lacey mentioned, we learned that they've known each other since before KB's accident. And so clearly Fern is still getting used to what it means for her friend
Right.
to have new needs and to not be able to do as many things. And meanwhile, KB wants to be seen and wants to, not doesn't want Fern to be just living in not reality or whatever she said. Like, because that isn't really helpful for the present situation, and that can be very alienating. And I think it was smart to do this through these kids because they're clearly best friends. They're clearly great friends. So it's not like a black and white situation where it's like Fern only did the wrong thing, because she did the right thing in a lot of instances, but that's not always enough. There are still ways that Fern needs to grow. And so I liked that they were able to push that much farther than I'm used to seeing in TV. So
That's a
Well
great
said.
point. Yeah, because even in the earlier episodes, like when we see KB on the back of Fern's bike, she's very like, please don't do this. Slow down. You're going too fast. And it makes it seem like she's nervous, but then you realize it's more than that. Like she was just
yeah,
in a huge accident and Fern doesn't realize I'm putting her life at risk.
yeah,
And like you said, it's more than just her being her best friend. It's like, how does your family operate around you now? Like, how is everybody treating you? And like, she doesn't want to be treated any different, but she just wants to be understood.
yeah. And it can almost be worse when people are like, "Oh, I see past your disability. I still believe in you that you can do stuff." And
Yeah.
that's clearly really stressful for KB, who has to carry the weight of like what she knows might happen alone,
Right.
because everyone else wants to pretend like she can still do stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And and having that like from a children's standpoint, trying to understand that and communicate that, like KB having to try to communicate that to Fern, who clearly initially only sees that as she's mad at her, or she doesn't open up to her, because kids are not fully emotionally mature yet, and their initial reactions are that they did something wrong, and I think they did a great job illustrating all of that here, and then ultimately them each finding their way back to each other. I don't know if it's just that Star Wars fate that allows that stuff to happen, but like, it, I guess because if Wim didn't decide to just follow those little crab bots and KB go with him because she was tired of Fern just saying like, come do this, knowing she can't. If they didn't make the wrong direction, she would have potentially died or something. The fact that they were near all those droid parts, exactly where they needed to be, if she was climbing that construction and crane and she had that meltdown, she's finished. So the fact that she followed Wim on a whim, not to be funny, and they wound up going the wrong direction, it was the right direction. And it's like that Star Wars fate sprinkled over it all. It's just that whole sequence, again, short episode and stuff, but it was really powerful Star Warsy stuff.
yeah.
It really was. Those crabs, by the way, remind me of a combo of the seagulls from Finding Nemo and the aliens from Toy Story. The claw. The claw tells us who will go and who will stay.
Yeah.
You must go.
Did you
You
guys?
remind me of a Pokemon.
Or
Oh,
yeah.
my
Yeah.
son's
level.
obsessed with Pokemon, and he hasn't seen this episode yet, so I want to see if he like mentions that too.
Oh, okay. Nice.
He's absolutely obsessed. By the way, shout out to Kyle Weaver. He sent Johnny like a bunch of Pokemon stuff. My son Johnny, so appreciate it. I
Oh,
have to
that's
give him
so
a shout out
nice.
for that. He was like, Kyle is like the greatest guy in the world. He is like a second Santa. Like he was just like so happy. So thank you, Kyle. I had to give you a shout out on the show for doing that. You made Johnny's day. All right. I
Okay,
wanted
so the
to ask-
shanty.
Yeah.
She's been waiting. She's been waiting.
We have to talk. What do you guys think of the actual revealing of the real ship underneath all this armored shell and stuff like that? It's like this sleek, really cool looking ship. Were you bummed out or were you into it? What do you guys think of that big twist at the end?
Into
I thought
it.
it was I thought it was cool, and it explains why. Is it Rened or Renad? Rened.
Rened.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, I've plated the ship with armor, and you're like, oh, I didn't pick up on that subtle line right there. That you're like, it's basically a ship and a ship. Hooray! Like,
it's got me wondering if, because it's like this sleek, really nice
it's
ship
new.
that's made to look like a beat up old pirate ship. I'm beginning to wonder if this Tac Rened is from Ad-Atten.
The
like
supervisor,
but originated on Ad-Atten and created this persona, and then went to the other planets and destroyed the coordinates. It wasn't he destroyed the coordinates because he found the coordinates. He knew where it was because it was his home. I don't know.
Would you have pushed the button?
He disappeared after plundering Ad-Atten. Is that what the implication was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
AKA he returned home.
I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah, but then it's like we speculate a lot on this show, Xanthi. So, but sometimes it's just absolutely bananas. But I don't know. I keep having a hard time thinking that was a crash landing. I feel like there's something more to this. But the only thing I would wonder is, say Tac Rened is from Ad-Atten, whether he's connected to these characters in more ways than we think or not. What's the reason for creating the whole pirate thing? Is it to create this legend that spreads around that Ad-Atten is a myth? Is it that angle?
So he's just trying to protect it.
Yeah.
Could be.
I don't know, but we got to find out. We have 2 episodes to find out. Yeah.
People are chanting shanty in the comments, so I think we got to go to
Thank you. My people. Okay, can we talk about the sea shanty?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay, do it.
Okay, cool. Okay. So, I don't even know if you can see that. It's probably up. Oh, it's probably backwards. Oh, it's backwards because
it's not backwards for us.
Oh, it's not. Okay, good. Okay, good. Good. Okay, so just to review, it's Cinder, never was he seen again. My voice is shot from being sick last week. But okay, so this bit of music, believe it or not, we have heard it already in previous episodes. And it has been associated with Captain Rened. It notably, here I have a prettier version. Here we go. It notably, the notes here. Does anyone in the chat recognize that?
Play it again.
Will. Okay.
Oh, let my people go, right?
Oh, maybe. It's something much more general than that. It's a very commonly yep, James got it. So James Waterman in the chat got it. James is, by the way, is part of the band batch with me, which is my group of friends from music school.
I love it.
We are streaming about Skeleton Crew music. So if anyone wants to know more about the Skeleton Crew music, we will be talking about it on Saturday.
So you have plants in the chat who know the answers? What is that? I wonder. I'm like, oh, totally. It's Dies Awry. Yeah. James, I see you, James.
So Dies Irae is a Gregorian chant. Dies Irae, Dies Illa, and this the Dies Irae, the music from it, I mean, at least those 4 notes, sometimes 8 notes, sometimes more of it, have appeared in so much film. Just check out the YouTube channel Film film music tropes. Yeah, film music tropes to see supercuts of Dies Irae in films, like hundreds, thousands of films.
It
And
sounded like the Witches Road one that just came out recently.
honestly, probably in there.
It's like down the Witches Road.
It's in I think every Star Wars show and movie that I've ever watched.
Wow.
Wow. And it's also like in The Nightmare Before Christmas, making Christmas,
La la
making
la. Yeah, yeah.
Christmas, da, da, da.
Yeah.
It's when Luke Skywalker in episode 4 looks out at the burning homestead and it's like da, 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 da.
Oh yeah.
It's everywhere. So yeah, the lyrics to this chant speak about the day of wrath. So whenever one hears the Dies Irae in a piece of film or TV media, it often signifies that something bad will happen or that something is a little bit ominous. And oh, by the way, for those of you who have watched the show Lost, Kate's theme is basically just Dies Irae. Yeah, so it's like always
Girl
like,
was
oh no,
doomed from the start.
some bad stuff is gonna go down.
Which is Mick's father's music, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, so Tak Rened's music and this shanty is very clearly based on the Dies Irae, and it's just 4 notes. So could it happen on accident? Sure, but because it's such like kind of a fun Easter egg that a lot of composers do put in their score. So like I believe this is probably on purpose because Mick Giacchino knows what Dies Irae is and has doled it out, chosen to put it here.
It's so fun when you
That's
hear
really
stuff
cool.
like that and then you're like, I know I've heard that before. And it's like, no, you totally have and it's on purpose.
Yeah, and now you'll hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love the way they're blending in pirates and pirate, just what we know from pirate pop culture and all the fun stuff of pirates swashbuckling adventures into Star Wars, and they're doing it in a really cool way. Like they're pulling it off for me. It doesn't feel like it's this filter applied over Star Wars. It feels like it has been a part of the galaxy for a while. We just haven't seen a lot of it. They've tossed around the term pirates dating back to like The Empire Strikes Back, but seeing like the pirate culture, like it's working for me. It may not be working for everybody, but I've been really enjoying it.
Me too.
Musically, I think the second most piratey thing is like Boba Fett's theme. Felt very piratey to me.
Yes, it did. Absolutely.
Exactly what Auric Font says. Dies Irae is almost the score equivalent of the Willem Scream. Yes.
That frequently. Okay.
That is a
yeah,
great thought. I love that.
I would say probably even more frequently.
I love that. So do you have a piece so far in the series that you're like, oh my gosh, beautiful, love it, everything about it?
Well, I think the theremin stuff from episode 3 was really cool. And I thought that was such an interesting choice of an instrument to use.
Yeah.
Probably because it's so sci-fi coded, and the original Star Wars score was meant to sound distanced from
right,
like those sci-fi sounds. However, this score, like now that decades have passed and now we've had all this Star Wars music, bringing in the theremin now actually hits different than it would have in the 70s and totally works. But it's so like full circle almost. Like theremin was definitely not the kind of score that George Lucas originally wanted, but now using theremin in the midst of a more orchestral score is so cool.
It's fun. It like there's rules in Star Wars music up until I feel like The Mandalorian, and then Ludwig Göransson sort of like kicked the door down to making using Western motifs and that sort of thing, and fans really took to that. Anytime I hear the Mandalorian theme now, I get goosebumps. I think it's just such a cool hook. And now we're getting, we got a lot of things in Obi-Wan that were a bit different. And now this, I feel like they're using at least the Disney Plus shows to, expand the palette of music within live action Star Wars. And it's been cool. I think Mick Giacchino's doing such a good job on this series. It's really making it fun.
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I think probably the most used musical themes are this pirate thing, right? Etc. We don't usually hear the B theme, but that was throughout this episode. But there's this also like secondary pirate theme, which I'm curious actually how um, I'm curious how recognizable it is to people. But it's the like we hear it a lot in this episode.
We do.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So you're hearing it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And that's from episode 3. That's the first time we hear that. So it's been,
cool.
yeah. I'd say probably my favorite piece of oh, okay. No, one more that we usually hear, but is missing from this episode is that kind of mysterious theme that we
Oh,
hear
yes.
all the way. Yeah.
Mhm.
And but my favorite piece of music is one that hasn't recurred, unfortunately, and I hope it recurs. James, if you're still in the chat, will probably be making fun of me. Probably knows what I'm going to say because I'm very partial to a big violin solo moment. And in episode 2 of the show, when the rat was like going in SM33's eye coming out of it, there was this really cool violin like thing, and it hasn't come back. But just like Fennec Shan's theme in The Mandalorian, which is a big violin solo, and I hope comes back. It never came back. I'm holding out hope for these two to come back somewhere.
But then there's always that line where you're like, there could be an overuse of something, but you're like, can I just get a second instance of this one little thing? Yeah, just a little more. Need a little more of a taste. Yeah. So music aside, though, we haven't brought it up, and we have to bring it up. Phil Tippett back in the saddle in this episode, doing his thing, and like, what else needs to be said? The OG of OGs in doing visual effects work for a Star Wars show in 2024. Thoughts? I just think that is so amazing, and it's like it shows that even though things have moved on, and Disney does own this stuff, and there's been a lot of names that have left. They're still able to bring in somebody like Phil Tippett because they know how much he means to the fans, to the franchise, and probably how much doing that stuff, as we know from watching Light and Magic, means to Phil Tippett. So we had to spend at least a couple minutes on the
that
legend.
monster was huge. So cool. First of all, it was so big, and when they released the reel, I think it was 2 weeks ago, of them doing it step by step, and they did it sped up of the guy moving the little like pincers and stuff. It's massive, and it does remind me of Moana. I'm not gonna lie, because it's a huge crab and has stuff all over its back. But man, did it look amazing in this show, and I'm so pumped every time they do practical stuff because it stands the test of time. It lasts. It looks great. And it's just not a skill you see very often. I feel like people are leaning into it more in the past few years, especially because I think fans have really enjoyed this kind of stuff. But it's really, I love seeing people like in their craft doing their thing. And this is something that's so specific and such a beautiful, masterful skill set that I wish I could have had, but I just don't. It's just so fun to watch on screen, and it makes it more fantastical for me. Like I keep going back to it, but it's very much like a labyrinth type situation where you're seeing these amazing creatures that is what made me fall in love with Star Wars. These things that are beyond anything you could ever imagine in space is what I think is Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm blown away that he came back. The fact that he doesn't do interviews very often when to talk about Star Wars. I hope we get a fuller behind the scenes feature on the show in general, of course, because I really enjoyed the show, and I feel like this show in particular has a lot that they can peel back the curtain and show you how they did some of this stuff. Amazing practical effects, great use of the volume. and then bringing in a legend like Phil Tippett is incredible when you think about the fact that he was working on this stuff like 50 years ago. So amazing. He will go from such a young guy to now in his mid to late 70s still doing it because he absolutely loves doing it. And it was like, it's like this life-saving work for him. My favorite part from Light and Magic was him being so candid about that. So I just think that's awesome that he came back to do that stuff, and it adds like a sort of stamp of legacy approval onto the show for me. Not that it needs it, but like me and Lacey love all that creature visual effects puppetry stuff.
James
Xanthi,
brought up
so-
a great point. Was the creatures from the Last Jedi casino hanging out,
I
like the
thought
bubble
so.
lady and stuff? Yeah,
The
they were all
opera
there.
The
lady.
bubble lady looked familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Who hits
cool.
like the opera
She breaks
notes,
the glass.
right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought so too, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't
No,
sure
it
about
definitely looks like the
She's
same character.
unmistakable and
that.
slightly disturbing.
Yeah.
They pulled that costume out. Yeah, no, it was very cool. I'm interested to see what happens to the lightsaber though, because he did take the lightsaber and then someone else picked it up, and then there were 4 X-wings in this episode, not 2. So I can't help but question who were the other 2, because we know there were 2 with Kim's planet. Now, who are the additional 2?
That was a cool part too. Seeing
Mhm.
the kids saying like, "Oh, that Kim said those were called X-wings," and you're seeing X-wings
Right.
doing X-wing things with the iconic X-wing blaster sound, and like they really hit a very Star Warsy piece of music for that as the X-wings are shooting down the pirate ships, and then the kids realizing like, "Oh wait, those are the good guys."
You're
just
like,
the
And I love
simplicity of
and I
Star
love how they're
Wars,
trying
like-
to figure it out. Like
Yeah,
just it's just not it's not obvious, and they're
They're
trying
like
to
Jod said
go
they were
on
the
who they
bad guys,
trust.
but they're actually the good
Right.
guys, and it's like, I love that they're just showing you like sometimes Star Wars is simple. It's like, good guys and bad guys. And
Well,
there's
the other
bad
thing
people and
too,
people.
yeah, is when this show is going to be some kids' introduction to Star Wars. Like, this is going to be their start. So getting that kind of viewpoint of not knowing what X-wings are and then seeing like that and then learning like the kids are, that like, oh, those are the good guys. It's just such an interesting journey compared to someone like the 3 of us that have come with different movies and different shows and books and whatever. And then this is kids experiencing Star Wars through the eyes of kids. Like, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
so fun to even consider.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
to me, it adds sort of that suspension of disbelief, because it's like seeing a character witness something for the first time in Star Wars, which makes X-wings feel real to me. And it's like if like my son walked outside his house because an F-35 flew by the house or something, he'd be like, "Oh my God, did you see that? Oh, that's whatever." And it's like we were seeing kids in Star Wars seeing these X-wing things that they just heard about. They're like, "Oh my God, that's what an X-wing does." It just adds a layer to the realness of Star Wars to me. I love that.
Do you think those X-wings are going to show up to Aden? How do you think they're ultimately going to get involved? Because the New Republic's going to get involved at some point.
I don't know. I feel like the next episode's going to be sort of like the race to Aden, because the kids have the ship and Jod's going to go with all the pirates and hopefully repaired SM-33. He got pretty zapped up good. But
Yeah, so before we get into speculation, I do want to bring up a super chat from Mike Lovins. What up, man? Happy New Year.
Hey.
Thank you for the super chat. He said, just wishing my Star Wars fam a Happy New Year. No.
Happy New Year,
to you.
Mike.
Thank you so
How you doing,
much.
buddy?
Just
Thank
want to
you,
get to that before we get into what we think's next, right? That's like the next.
Yeah, so Xanthi, are you big on speculation? Do you look too far ahead? Do you like to have fun with your imagination when it comes to this stuff? Where do you think the show's going?
So, okay, I guess I was also going to ask a question, which was, do you think they're going to wrap up the story this season, or do you think they're going to really angle for a season 2 to wrap stuff up?
I think they're wrapping it up this season because they thought it was only one season, but that doesn't mean that they don't have plans for the another season, because John Watts and Christopher Ford have already said we would love to do another season. But I think and the way that Disney has kind of marketed this show was a limited series. So I think it's going to have a nice bow on it. Like, you're going to be satisfied with where it ends up. Again, we'd love to hear your speculation. I'd love to hear your speculation of what songs do you think are going to show up from Star Wars in the next 2 episodes, because I think you have a better picture of that than I do.
Well, I don't think we're going to get anything from like the original 9 movies, except maybe the Force theme again, because we did already get that. There's precedent for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll get even more piratey stuff. It's been pretty thematically consistent, I think. Even Fern has music that's really nice and subtle. And yeah, I'm fun stuff. I hope also more theremin comes back. And I think it must. I think Kim must come back because how can she not, honestly?
That's a great point, because KB said, she told KB, call me when you need help. I think this is the moment. KB's going to call her out now that they've taken off into space.
And also they just mentioned her name in this episode, which is like, oh, they're reminding us that Kim is still in the wings.
Oh, pun.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So my relationship to speculation and to making predictions. I think the plot points of Star Wars shows is maybe one of the least interesting things to me. For me, it's like I'm super interested in how it's going to be done and in how character growth will be achieved. And these are things that can't really be predicted in an on paper way. It's sort of I have to watch it and then see if it affects me. So I sometimes evade questions about speculation because another thing is I like to protect myself as much as possible. And once I get thinking about something, I don't want to start hoping for it too badly and then find myself disappointed when if I just hadn't tried at all, I would still be delighted.
Who's been your favorite character of the series?
Probably KB. NEEL also very charming, but I'm liking KB, and I think Kim was probably the most interesting character.
Yes.
I definitely want to see more of that character.
All right, John, where are we going next?
Yeah, I just have a feeling that this next episode is going to sort of be the race of who's going to get to AT-ATN first. And that'll set up the finale. So I think by the end of the episode, all parties will get to AT-ATN. Who else will be on their tail and arrive there? I don't know, but I think the final big conflict will happen on AT-ATN in the final episode. So I think next week will be about that adventure. Now that we've gone all around back towards AT-ATN, and I think that's a good idea. Bringing Kim in for help on that. It was set up. Most of the things they've set up on the show, they have come back around to. The button, don't ever touch that button. And then they're like, we are literally about to be melted. So we might as well touch the button. And it released this beautiful new ship. So I'll be honest with you, after we're done tonight, I'm going to go outside and hit the button on my car I've never hit to see if maybe it turns into a Lamborghini or a Transformer or something. You never know. Yeah. I don't know. Lacey, what do you think? You've been pretty good on some of the speculations so far.
Well, if you're talking about my garbage chute into garbage with the crab, I'm just going based on the fact that the crab was on a pile of garbage and that Disney/Star Wars loves to send their characters down chutes into garbage. So it was kind of bound to happen eventually.
But also no Mando. We were all wondering a little bit whether
I know. And I think we were just talking about fan expectations. I was really hoping Mando would show up, but I still think he might show up at some point, maybe at the end, like showing up after everything's resolved. Really? He's like, I'm here to save the day. And everyone's like, dude, everything's done.
I don't think he's showing up. You're late. Think he's showing up anymore.
That would be hilarious to me.
I think it's too late for him to show up.
That's a great point. I totally agree with you, because they have to basically tie up all these storylines. It would be too much to bring him in at this point. I just miss him so much. Anyway, that being said, I do think that we will see Kim again. I think that's a pretty obvious thing. They keep bringing her up. And then the whole moment that she shares with KB in episode 3, where she's saying, like, call me if you need help. Like, this is the time. They have no adults. They're going to call for help. We also haven't gotten the parents' message yet. That's another piece we haven't had, that the parents were trying to send out this message to them. I think they might get that in the next episode. Right. I think I agree with you, John. It's a race of who's going to get there first. Do you think the pirates are going to get there first, or do you think the kids are going to get there first?
I feel like I don't know. I
Same
want to say
time.
pirates.
You think
I
the
want to
same
say
time?
pirates. 'Cause I feel
I
like
want to say the pirates too, because then the kids are going to know more, and the parents
Yeah.
are going to be dealing with it, not realizing the kids show up. You know, Neil's going to burst out that big gun that we learned from Hannah in that episode, that from like the
all
manhole
lessons
cover.
learned will be applied in the final
Yeah,
battle.
like
Mhm.
you're at the point in the show now that you have to go back and be like, make a list of like, okay, they showed us
Yeah,
this,
and
they
all
showed us
those
this, they showed us this.
Hannah and all those people from at Akron are gonna roll up. They're gonna be like, she convinced us that caring about people is more than ourselves, and like it's gonna be like Mando does, where it's like all those people he meets along the way, like sort of show up when the time's right.
There was an interesting moment that I forgot to bring up earlier that I do want to bring up, which was when Jod was doing his speech. There's this interesting moment of shots where he's sitting there while they're telling him that like he's going to die and go in the airlock, aka walk the plank. And he looks at that old woman and he's looking at her, and it cuts to him, cuts to her, cuts to him. And then all of a sudden she speaks up and she's like, "Hey, what about this?" And I couldn't help but feel in my gut that I was like, did he just do a Jedi mind trick on her to make her bring that up?
Mm.
Because she was sitting there
Oh,
quietly,
really?
and all of a sudden he's like, the camera shots were like him, her, and then he's like looking at her, and all of a sudden she's like, "What about this? The extra time?" And he's just like, "Yeah, what about the extra time?" And I'm like, did he just? Is that just a? Because that's what it seemed like. Now go back and tell me if I'm wrong, and it might be wrong. It might just be clever
I didn't think of that,
editing.
but it, you know,
It
could
was
be a
just
thing.
very weird, and it only works on weak minds. So if she's a weak kind of pirate helper person, then it would be easy for him to kind
pirate
of
helper
trick them a little.
person. It's a PHP.
Yeah, very technical. I don't know if anybody else knows that. I don't know. When I watched it the second time too, I was like, this is such a deliberate cut.
Or she
here.
just really likes him and she wanted to keep him around.
But they never show any relationship with
No,
her.
I
So
know.
that's
I'm
why
just
it would be weird. Like if it was the same guy from earlier, or, you know, even the Kona person he goes up to, he talks to her. She's like the one person from SAG that got paid for lines, apparently, because they gave all the lines to her.
Yeah.
But like that other woman, like she's a no one. And all of a sudden he's staring at her and no one else in the room. And then she speaks up and I'm like, why would he be staring at her unless he did
I mean, that'd be
Jedi
cool because that'd
mind
be the first time we saw him do anything like that to a living thing.
And
We've seen
that's
him
what I
move
was
objects
thinking
around
of,
and-
because you kept
yeah.
bringing it up, John, that he's only done like manipulating like physical objects. And this was the
Objects,
first time, that I'd seen him do something that's kind of a little on the sneakier side.
Mm.
Yeah. On my show, we've been discussing whether Jod might be a product of Order 66. And I'm curious if
Great
that's
point. Yeah, we've been talking about that too. Like, is he a Padawan that didn't make it through? Is he a Jedi? Because the whole thing from, I'm losing track of the timeline, but I believe it was the last episode where he was talking with Wim, where he's like, you know, no attachments, all this. You're like, oh my God, this is like the red flags. Like, come on.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because he strikes me as like a Jedi that didn't quite make it.
Right.
Like
Yes.
not, and so like him being like, I never said I was a Jedi, is less about him not using the Force, but about like technically maybe he never was a Jedi. Technically,
That's what my thought was. Yep.
Little asterisk.
Agreed.
yeah.
Actually, Xanthi, before we close out, I wanted to ask you because in that second episode where we first meet Jod and the key starts floating, there's that piece of music right before the Force theme that felt very Giacchino to me. And it was very emotional and he clearly had an epic feel to it. Have you heard that elsewhere? Because I thought I heard it in the next episode, on the third episode, when Jod was disabling the door or something. Is that Jod's
Oh,
theme?
interesting.
What do you make of that? You know what piece I'm talking about?
I do.
Of course you do. What am I asking you?
This is like it was planned between the two of you. Is there something I don't know?
It's like when Jimmy Fallon has a guest and they're like, all right. Yes.
And then it's. I have not, to my knowledge, heard it, but I will. I miss stuff all the time, so I will check the spot that you think you heard it in episode 3.
Okay, yeah, it's like right around when I think it's right when he says, "Oh, I'm Neil and I'm Win," and he's like, "I'm Jod. Now we know each other. Now we're not strangers." You know, it's like that
Oh, okay.
moment. I could be wrong, but I thought I heard it. It's way more subtle, slow. But I haven't heard that surrounding anyone else. And it's a big moment for Jod. It's a very Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda using the Force type of thing. So just
Yeah.
let me know. Hit me, let me
I
know.
definitely will.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of music geeks in here, so this was awesome. So so first we gotta say thank you again, Xanthi, for coming on, taking the time.
Of course.
We know you got a lot going on, and we couldn't be happier to have you on because I think our audience is gonna love the little nuanced look into some of the music going on here with this show. And I knew you were gonna knock it out of the park because we had such great discussions when we were on your show. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And yeah, if anyone else wants to listen to more about this episode, the music of, there will be me plus 2 or 3 other people with different instrument specialties talking on Saturday.
I love it.
Excellent. And then toss your plugs out there one more time for our audience.
Yes, on YouTube, it's Star Wars Music Minute. I've been in the chat, so you can probably click to find me. And yeah, also in the podcast feeds. My normal show goes through the films of Star Wars, 5 cinematic minutes at a time. Both Lacey and John have been guests talking about 5 minutes from a film. And then I also cover the TV shows with my friends, James, Christina, Justin.
Very
So
cool. Awesome stuff. And we want to thank everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB, being Galactic Goonies with us. We'll be back next week on Thursday, January 9th, with our guests from Force Center. We have Ken Knapsack and Joseph Scrimshaw will be with us Thursday, the 9th. I am unavailable on Wednesday. That's really the only reason. And then to close things out, making his 6th or 7th appearance, Clayton Sandell's coming back on the 15th to talk about the finale and what he's got going on. He just put out an amazing interview he did with Jake Lloyd on his Substack, so be sure to follow Clayton's Substack.
Wow.
Subscribe free to it. He gave us an update into what's going on with Jake Lloyd, so definitely go check that out from Clayton. He did an amazing job as always because he is a pro.
The best
pro
of the
and
best.
one of the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For us, TRB podcasts everywhere. Of course, Nerdy and Nice. This coming Monday, we're going to do a little bit of a different episode. We're actually dedicating an entire episode to reviewing season 2 of Squid Game. Xanthi, do you watch Squid Game?
I've seen 1 episode and that's it.
Okay.
I need to watch it. It's on my list.
I want to know your thoughts on the music of that show because
Really?
the music is so good in that show and it's so different. Oh, it's so
Mhm.
good. It's very like
That's-
childlike. It's good.
Those are my magic words. Like when people recommend me stuff, I'm like, oh, I'll do it or not. But if they're like, I want your opinion on the music, I'm like,
I
oh,
do.
damn it.
Please
No, I
do
have
it. Please do
Trapped.
it. Please.
Lacey, did we have one more super chat? Did I miss one?
We did.
Okay.
So
make
this
sure.
is from Fred Tastic. Ooh, love that name. 314. Thank you so much. Said, I would like to see Din Djarin appear and put Jod in carbon freeze to collect his bounty with the guild. And he put cross fingers. That actually would make me laugh, but at the same time, I kind of want them to be friends. Because they're 2 dads, 2 dads hanging out.
2 dads
No,
hanging out.
I would like to see Din show up. I know that I feel like Star Wars fans are very split. Like you have people that are like, I want to see him, and then you have people that are like, no, keep them out of this. This is just different. I get it. I understand. But thank
Lacey,
you so much. Happy New Year.
Where can people hit you up, Lacey, to talk about that prospect?
People can find me on social media at Lacey Gillerin and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gillerin. Xanthi, thank you so much for coming. You bring such an expertise and wonderful passion for the music of Star Wars that it's just like you punch it into hyperspace every time, and it amazes me. So thank you so much.
That is so nice.
No, it's really, really great.
Agreed. And then for me, Johnny Hoey on Blue Sky and X. And yeah, Xanthi, you're the best. I had such a great time with you. Look forward to chatting with you in the future, whether that's coming back on your show or you coming back to the base. But it's always a good time. So happy New Year to you. And thanks again for coming on.
Oh, you're the best.
Everybody else, Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you for stopping by. We hope your New Year's off to a great start. We'll be back with you nerds on Monday to talk Squid Game with Nerdy and Nice, and the rest of you next Thursday for episode 7 of Skeleton Crew with Force Center. So have a wonderful week. Happy New Year, and we'll see you next time right here on Galactic Goonies. See you around, kids.